Ralph Alessi, and I am the founder and director of the Center for Improvisational Music. CIM is a nonprofit organization that has been in existence since 2001, and we mostly present workshops for improvisers through our SIM series, School for Improvisational Music, and we've been doing that. We've probably done 20 workshops for about 1,000 students, mostly in New York City, but we do it in Europe as well. But we've always wanted to do other things. The Center for Improvisational Music is kind of our umbrella idea. So we recently formed a partnership with the Brooklyn Conservatory of Music, and it has allowed us to experiment and do some different things. Last month we did a listening session here with 3 members of our faculty that played music for the public, and we talked about music, and it was really nice, and hopefully we get to do that again. This event tonight is something that we've been wanting to do for probably a year or two. I really believe in this idea of musicians interviewing musicians, and it really isn't done that much, especially in front of a live audience, so I'm really hoping we can continue to do this. We're obviously very lucky tonight to have these 2 individuals here. So without further ado, I want to introduce Steve Coleman, and I want to introduce our guests for our first, what's the name of this? Such an odd name. You know, Andy Millen came up with this name, and it was this Meet Jazz Luminaries series. I think that's what it's called, the Meet Jazz Luminaries series. So our first subject for our first Meet Jazz Luminaries interview, Mr. Milford Graves. Steve Coleman. Thank you.
Ralph told me about this. I was honored to do it because, like him, I remember most of the things that I read as I was coming up. One example would be Arthur Taylor's Notes and Tones. When you had these things where musicians were interviewing, in that case he was interviewing, I guess, his peers or people slightly older than him. It was Max and a couple of other people. Maybe Betty Carter, I can't remember exactly what was in it. But of course, because he was a participant in the music, you know, the depth that they got to, in the music was just great, and it wasn't the usual questions, you know, that you usually see that journalists ask and things like that. And it was almost like you were eavesdropping on it, just a conversation with the cats, you know, kind of thing. And that's what I liked about it. And then to be doing it with this guy, you know, is an amazing treat for me because of just in our conversations. I mean, you seem to know about everything, man. I mean, it's just. I mean,
I don't know.
Well, I mean, you don't know. I really don't know. So, but you've done so much, and I feel like that not enough people are aware of, especially some of the history, the background, the period you came up in was a very dynamic period. Coming of age in the '60s, and that period, as everybody knows, even though most of you guys are too young, that was a lot of things were happening. There were a lot of changes happening at that time and everything, and to be a young, energetic guy coming up during that time, what was going on with the music, what was going on culturally, what was going on around the world, actually. There was a lot of transformation happening, and I definitely see you as a transformative figure, as somebody who's about transformation. So I just want to start off with a little bit about your early career, where you're from, and how you came to this music in the first place. What led you into this direction?
Well, first of all, I'm from the famous South Side, South Jamaica, Queens. And most people just think of maybe 50 Cent and a few more people from that area. But these are the younger guys. And because of the younger people getting all this publicity now, you know, in the pop world, that they come from like Queens, especially Jamaica or South Jamaica area, Then I started to reflect. I said, wow, you know, I was brought up in the South Jamaica area, in the South Jamaica houses, or as they call the 40 projects, at a time when there were a lot of dynamic people that was living there and came out of there. And a few years back, I was in Florida, and so one of my visitors, a visitor came to see me. And he said, you know, you were very inspirational to me. And I said, oh yeah? I mean, I was just amazed, because this guy amazed me. He was 5 years younger than me. This guy amazed me because he was the first human being to jump 29 feet. It was Bob Beeman. And I didn't realize that Bob Beeman lived a block away from me. He said, I used to listen to you play timbales. And that's how, you're the one who started me off playing them drums. I'd be listening to you out your apartment, and I was just trying to play everything you did. I said, oh, wow. And then there's another person today who, Robert Gatson, and I said, wow, I mean, we grew up together. We used to hang out just like this here. He is the guy who is now the chief and in charge of the security for the NBA players. I mean, I can go down the list. Lee Andrews, who was the big-time NBA referee, one of the NBA, a lot of doo-wop groups came out of that time, because I used to be a doo-wop singer too. And
Before
so,
drums.
huh?
Before drums.
No, I was playing drums. I was touching drums since I was about 3 years old.
Oh, okay.
They were left in my house. My parents was renting a house in turn. In turn, they rented a room to this guy who, I really don't remember him. All I remember is the drums. But he passed away and the drums were there. And so at that time, that area was like very wooded. It was like eastern Long Island. It wasn't all congested with a lot of homes. So I would play on cans, you know, I'd be trying to imitate the movies in Hollywood, you know, and I had one guy over there playing on tin cans, and we were supposed to be doing signal drumming and so on and so on. So I grew up in an area that we weren't as hip as the people from Manhattan or Brooklyn, especially the musicians. So everything we did was what we thought was supposed to be done. And then when we came to Manhattan, people would say, where you guys from? You know, and I used to play hand drums for this school, Bernice Johnson's dance school. It was very famous. It was actually Bud Johnson's wife. And so we had a dancer named Lester Wilson, who was a choreographer for that movie. I can't remember. I think Belafonte put it out. But he did have a TV program. So Lester and another guy named Raleigh Hall, who I recorded with on one of those folkways records, Ahumba, who is now kind of big. He's a retired, but he's a big home builder out in Queens. He took his hands from playing drums and picking up hammers and screws, but he built a lot of the houses out there. So we would come down, we would come to Manhattan sometimes and do little performances, and there'd be other groups there. And they would say, where are those people from? Those dancers, they sure look weird. I ain't never seen no African or interpretive dancer like that. And then we'd play, they said, they got a different style. They don't play the same kind of rhythm, but we was playing, you know, South Jamaica style.
And what age were you then around?
Oh, I started graduating then. I was like coming into about 14, 15. Mm-hmm. But before that, you know, we were just very local. I would play for all the intermissions on these dance halls. They would have these local dances. You know, these clubs would put on these dances, and they would use these local dance halls, and they would have these bands there. And so the people always knew us because we'd be in the playground, we'd be in the housing projects, and we'd just be playing. You know, bongo, conga, tambali, you know. Mm-hmm. And so they said, get some more young boys and, you know, let them do the intermission. And we were so good, they didn't even want the band back. And the band leaders would always come and say, hey, you kids, you got a union card? And we say, what union card? We didn't know what no union card meant, you know. And they didn't want a song because at 12 o'clock, you know, if people got all that firewater, they just blasted. They'd be all on the floor dancing. They didn't want to hear no big band. They wanted to hear them drums. And so, you know, what brings me, I'm going to go up, you know, climb the time, you know, the calendar a little bit, move on. But anyway, it's funny because in 1964, when I made my appearance on the scene, you know, and
on Traps.
Yeah, I mean, that's another story there, but I'm going to jump all the way to like me and South Jamaica, the oddballs out there, to coming on the scene downtown, and people saying, you got to go check this guy Milford Graves out. I'm saying, what everybody want to check me out for? Then I read a review, and they said, he's avant-garde. You know what I did? I went and got the dictionary. What the heck is avant-garde? That was a new name for me. You know, and I looked this up. I said, so that's what I'm doing? They said, this guy's way out, man. He don't do this and do that. I thought I was just playing regular.
So you never had any models for that before, or this is just something you naturally did?
Well, no, I basically was always the kind of weird guy, they would say.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I played like this here. They said, you come up with all these different kind of odd stuff. Where did you get that from? I said, I don't know. I just do it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Fitch, I don't know how many people know Bill Fitch. But Bill Fitch, you know, he must have passed, from the last year, 2 years or something like that. Well, Bill Fitch and myself connected around 1961. Mm-hmm. And I really respected this guy. I mean, this guy was very advanced on conga. To be a 19-year-old kid, this guy was really advanced. And so I was amazed at what he was doing, and he was amazed at how I was playing timbales. He said, man, you got a different style. Mm-hmm. But he was very conventional. I mean, this guy could play like all the great conga players. He can imitate everybody. And I said, wow, this guy is good. Because he can play like all the guys I was listening to on records. Mm-hmm. But he was liking me, what I was doing. And he said, okay, you know what, Tito Puente got this particular kind of pattern that he plays on the bell beat. I mean, on his cowbell. But I wouldn't go like. He said, man, that's nice, man. It ain't like Tito. I said, well, I'm going to play it like Tito. He said, no, play it the way you play it. And I said, okay, I'm going to do it the way you know, said that you like to hear it. And so when he was telling me that, man, you got a different kind of style, man, and like, it's hit, man, he said, where do you get your ideas from? And he really brought that to my attention, about these ideas. And I was thinking, I was just doing what I do. I wasn't thinking about I was doing anything else different. Right. So he was very instrumental in, I would say, my development as like saying, okay, I'm going to do what I do. Because, you know, it's kind of difficult when you're out there and you're doing something and people are looking at you with attitudes, you know, especially people who play the same instrument as you. Right. You know, you come off, they're going to turn their back on you like, well, ain't nothing happening. You know, you got to have a lot of strength to overcome that. And basically, that's what I told people today. I said, if you really like what you're doing and you really feel it, just do it. Don't worry about it. See, because your confirmation comes from yourself. But once you doubt yourself, it's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. So,
so back to the 64, the traps.
Oh, the 64.
You told me a story about when you was playing and Elvin and Coltrane walked in.
Oh yeah, but before that, because my transition is basically, I never told nobody my history on traps. I can tell you now because I'm 70 years old. I don't worry. I'm gonna let it out now. It's over. You know, it's been a long time. But in 1964, I couldn't tell nobody nothing how long I've been playing traps. 1962, it was 1962, and there was another upcoming drummer who, look, I'm gonna, I have to say this for a second, okay? Now, Ralph, now you're gonna listen to this, Ralph. Because we're gonna jump from music to basketball for a quick second. And this guy, Jeremy Lin, I love the story. I love this guy's story. I just love his story. Here's this guy, everybody was gonna write him off. He's on the bench and he comes in and upsets everything. I said, that's it. So I'm saying, you know, every time we think we know somebody, there's always somebody else that we don't know. So don't ever think that you are the person. Never allow no one to tell you that you are number one and you are the person. Just be humble and do what you do. Mm-hmm. Because you know what? There's always somebody that will shake you up. You know what I mean? If you let your guards down, if you ride that ego trip like you're the person. I just do what I do. I'm always open. Somebody comes along and I see something, good, I can use that. No problem. But anyway.
I'm sorry, man. I'm laughing because I know what's coming.
Yeah. In 1963, there was a guy, and this is what I'm talking about. It's a kind of Jerry Lin story, but his name was Eric Brown. And he lived in the housing projects. And I used to hear these trap drums. I said, who's playing trap drums in a housing project? I don't know nobody in that building would play trap drums. So I went in this building and went up to the second floor and knocked on his door. And this guy, Eric, I said, Eric, what's happening, man? And they said, I'm playing these trap drums, man. He's about 18 years old. So I said, oh yeah, man. I said, you heard of